My Brother Sam is Dead. James Lincoln Collier and Christopher Collier, Chapter 3. It's a funny thing. You'd think that if there was a war going on in your own country, it would change everything. It would make your life different. You wouldn't think that there'd be men marching and drilling and people hurrying back and forth and lots of talk about the fighting. But it wasn't this way at all. It wasn't any different from usual. It was just normal. Of course, there were battles. There was a battle at Bunker Hill, where the Patriots massacred the British troops before they were driven off, and rebels also took Fort Ticonderoga without much of a fight. But these battles all seemed far away, and they were just things we read about in the Connecticut Journal and other newspapers. Sometimes Father brought home Rivington's Gazette from Valplanks. It was a Tory paper, and he wasn't supposed to have it. It was illegal, so he kept it hidden. It made me wonder how the war was going to make us freer if you couldn't read any paper you wanted to anymore. Oh, I don't mean that we ignored the war. There was always a lot of discussion about it around Reading, and sometimes people in the tavern would get into arguments over it when they'd drunk too much whiskey. Once Father actually threw a man out of the tavern. He was a stranger, and I guess he didn't realize that Reading was such a Tory town, because he told somebody that the only good lobsterback was a dead lobsterback, and that King George was a great hairy fool. My father said, "That's subversion, and we don't permit subversion here." The man smacked his beer mug down on the table. I thought I was among free men, not slaveys. He hardly got the words out before Father jumped over to the man, jerked him out of his chair, and pushed him through the door into the mud of the street. The man lay there on his back, cursing. But Father slammed the door, and the man left. I guess he suddenly realized that he was in Tory country. But leaving out things like that, the war didn't affect us much around Reading in that summer of 1775, except for Sam. Sam was gone, and nobody mentioned him, not Father, not Mother, not me. Father didn't mention him because he'd kicked him out, and Mother and I didn't mention him because of not wanting to get Father angry. For all we knew, Sam could be dead, but I didn't want to think about that, so I didn't. So the summer went along, and I lived my ordinary life, which was mostly chores all day long. Having a father who was a tavern keeper was a lot better than being a farmer's son, like most boys. Running a farm is terrible hard work, plowing and hoeing and milking cows and such, and being out in the field all by yourself with nobody to talk to all day long. Being around a tavern is a lot more fun. There are people coming and going, and a lot of them have been to the big towns like Hartford or New Haven, or even New York or Boston, and they have stories to tell. But still, it isn't much fun as people like Jerry Sanford think. Mostly Jerry works on his uncle's farm, and he thinks I have it lucky. He doesn't realize that there's an awful lot of wood to cut to keep the fireplaces going for cooking and water to come up from the well. And if there isn't anything else to do, there's scrubbing the floors and washing the windows and keeping everything clean generally. My mother's strong on cleanliness. Food tastes better in a clean house, she always says. And of course, there's the livestock I have to care for, too. Besides, the wood lot is 2 fields down the Fairfield Road from the tavern, and we have to cart it up. So even if it was better than farming, it wasn't all that much fun. Of course, whenever I could, I ducked out and did something with Jerry Sanford. If it was hot, we'd go for a swim in the mill stream or climb the trees up in his woodlot. We played Mumble the Peg or Spin the Tops or played Duck on the Rock, which I usually won because I could run faster. Sometimes if it rained, we'd go up to Tom Warup's and get him to tell us stories about the Indian Wars and the brave things his grandfather, Chief Chicken, did. Or if nobody was watching me, I'd sneak up into the loft and look at the old almanacs Sam brought back from college sometimes, but mostly I worked. I saw Betsy read a lot. She came into the tavern pretty often to buy thread or cloth or something, and I noticed that when she didn't linger around on some excuse and try to listen to what people were saying until my mother would say, "Betsy, I don't think your mother intended for you to spend the day idling," and she'd go. I didn't see what difference it made anyway. I never heard anyone say anything important. Then, one day in September, she came down with a jug to buy beer. She sat down at the table, and when my mother had her back turned filling the jug, Betsy gave me a wink and jerked her head towards the door. I wrinkled up my forehead at her to explain what she meant, but she just nodded at the door again. Then Mother brought the beer jug back and put it down on the table. "Off with you, Betsy," she said. "Idle hands make the devil's work."